I got to tell you, I don't exactly know what to say. So that's why we've got Cam Underwood from State of the U to provide the expert analysis and insight into Miami football following a, dare we say, disappointing, that's maybe to be kind, loss to Florida International. It's our 36th edition of Miami football. Duke is straight ahead as the regular season finale to try to finish above 500, both in the ACC and overall. Cam, how you doing today?
Yeah. Miami lost to FIU. Not good, Bob. Not good at all.
You left us a little trace of doubt last week. You were fully confident, I'm sure. They're a much better team. That can't be debated, even though they played on the field, and give FIU full credit for the victory, of course. But you left us with that just shred right there of Georgia Tech, 21-point favorite. We haven't arrived to where we can just jog out there and just throw it out there and it's going to be fine. And that's what happened. It was 23-3 at one point.
Can confirm that is accurate. Yeah. I did say it, just to leave the door open for the possibility of, just tanking another game against an inferior opponent. I know that FIU won. I'm not disputing that. There's no reason that Miami should have ever lost to FIU, whether it was this Saturday, next Saturday, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That is a team that you should never lose to, period. And yeah, it continues to be a struggle for Miami. You're 0-3 after bye weeks this year. You lose to Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and FIU in that order after bye weeks. You figure out a way to lose to a 1-win Georgia Tech team. Excuse me, I apologize. I thought I had that on mute. But you find a way to lose to a terrible Georgia Tech team who, after beating Miami, lost for a month straight until winning again this past weekend. So you even think, okay, well, Georgia Tech, they're going to, beat Miami and then another game. No, they lost to everybody else up until this last week. It is terrible. It is atrocious. It is unacceptable. The level of performance that we are seeing from the Miami Hurricanes, and to be outcoached again in that kind of a way, to have that kind of performance where you simply don't care. And I didn't, I said it last week on Friday, that we were on here saying, yeah, Miami should know by now. It's been proven and demonstrated that you cannot just go out there with a U on your chest or a Miami across the front wearing orange and green and white and saying, on the basis of that alone, we're just going to win in a walkover. You have to go out there and earn it. I remember, and I'm not even talking about very, very long ago, I remember when Miami would blow these teams out. Starters would play a half, and then you get the depth guys in there, and they're getting reps, and they're getting experience and things like that. Maybe it goes into the third or fourth quarter, but then you're still playing the second and third strings because you're blowing these teams out. But you went out there and did what you needed to do. And I've said this to you, Mark, for many, many years. When Miami does what Miami needs to do, everything is fine. This is another instance of Miami proving that they're not able to do what they need to do to play the way that they should play, finding ways to lose games to teams like this. It is terrible. And to the question that was on the screen, what's the latest on Justin Flo? There's been nothing reported, but it is hard for me to believe or think or consider that he's coming to Miami after that game on Saturday. It is a stretch of logic, of the imagination, of hope that I am not sure that I can do anymore. And I know that Justin Flo is probably down to, I've seen it reported or rumored that it was between Miami and Clemson, where Miami's pushing the city of Miami as a big thing in that recruitment. He's vibing with it. He's been down here, has family down here. Maybe, he's an LA kid thinking, or Upland is just outside of LA, but, you're thinking, that will be the connection that will bring him from the West Coast over here down to South Florida and things like that. Justin Flo, if you guys don't know, number 5 overall player in America, number 1 linebacker in this recruiting class. So, yeah, he's an elite player, as elite as it can get. it is hard to think that he would pick Miami now. And all of the good efforts that the win against Pittsburgh and Florida State and Louisville, all of that momentum that you had, you undid in a major catastrophic way. So 3 steps forward, 8 steps back with this loss to FIU. It's just absolutely terrible. What Dashoost put it as great as possible in this comment. What a disaster.
That's pretty much it in a football sense, of course. That's about what it is right now. And we've seen a few of these games where it felt like, okay, this is the low. This is the low. We harken back to the Virginia game from years ago that shut down the Orange Bowl, in which, ironically, this game was played on the same ground of sorts. And, of course, the Georgia Tech game was just this season, but it looked like this team had turned the corner, beating actually the better teams within the ACC on the schedule. Virginia, Louisville, Pitt. Those might be the 3 best teams that they played in the ACC, and they won those games. So they've shown us what they're capable of. They weren't dominant efforts, but they beat those teams fair and square. But if they don't show up, this is the result. So obviously Manny Diaz is the most accountable. He's responsible ultimately. But when you watching the game, reviewing the game, what unit, what portion of the team is most responsible?
Everyone. There is no one who was without blame, period. From the staffers to the assistants to the grad assistants to the receptionists at the athletic center to the coaches to the players, starters, scout team. There is no one who was without blame, period. That is the kind of catastrophe that we saw. I even noted it in the good, the bad, and the ugly. Lewis Headley punted 3 times and had a 52-yard punt or per punt average. You're part of the problem because you're on the team. Football's a team sport. Sorry, buddy. The offense was atrocious. I don't know why Jaron Williams was not pulled from that game. At a time, he was 5 for 17. Actually, I have it still up. Jaron was 5 for 17, including 8 incompletions in a row and 2 interceptions built in there. That was about when it was 23-3. FIU leading the game, by the way. I don't understand why he was not pulled from that game. That was not good enough. You had thrown 3 interceptions in those 17 throws, 2 in the final 8, which were all incompletions. That's not to the standard. I don't care if it was Malik Rozier. I don't care if it was N'Kosi Perry. I don't care if it was Jaron Williams. You're not playing good enough. And the stats at the end, because Miami is down a lot, and so you have to throw, and eventually, they blew a couple coverages and you hit some guys, deep. The stats look a little bit better at the end. But what are we talking about? You know what I mean? And again, this is about Jaron Williams not doing the job. And I know that there's some people saying, Cam, well, you're just a N'Kosi Perry fanboy. I don't care who the other quarterback was that you insert into the game. All I know is Jaron Williams wasn't doing good enough. He wasn't playing well enough to stay on the field. And if it were N'Kosi Perry, if it were Malik Rozier, they would have gotten pulled. So to me, it's an imbalanced situation when you have a player who's clearly not playing well enough. And you're ignoring that to continue to play him. That's not, and I don't care if it's Jaron, I don't care if it's, D. Wiggins, who, you can say he quit on a route, but kudos to FIU for knowing this quarterback wants to run RPO slants. That's where he makes his money. That's where he his bread is buttered, by hitting those throws. So we're going to put a defender right in the way of that guy running that route. And D. Wiggins stopped on the first interception. He physically ran into the defensive back and said, oh, wait, there's not supposed to be a guy there. But the guy was there. So now what are you supposed to do as a wide receiver? Continue your route and make them call the pass interference. But you didn't do that. So then Jaren throws it directly to the guy. Then into triple coverage with no window open at all. And I saw what happened. The linebacker took one step up and then stopped because you're reading him early and saying, oh, if he's coming downhill, that's where I'm going to pull it and I'm going to throw it. So FIU tricked them. Or tricked him into throwing those interceptions. But if FIU was, and they were, the 114th ranked rush defense in the country, why are you not running the ball, Danny knows? Not play action, not RPO, call an actual run play and run the ball. Why? Because they can't stop it. But no, you want to do those kind of things, right? Then you go quarterback power. With a DJ Dallas lead block on 4th and goal from the 1. Now, Zion Nelson whipped his guy, threw him to the ground. Unfortunately, when he did that, the defender then went through DJ Dallas's legs, which took away the lead blocker. There were still 2 other guys out there. So even if DJ Dallas makes that block, there's still 2 other guys. And you know what? On that play, Mike Harley is in the slot. And nobody from FIU looked at him before, during, or after that play. Mike Harley could be standing in the end zone to this day, to this second right now, and nobody from FIU would have noticed yet 4 days later. But you don't have the advantage or the ability to alter the play, to do a side adjustment and say, hey, it's 4th and goal, and there's a guy over there that nobody's paying attention to. So I'm going to give him the ball. You don't do that. I don't understand how every team that Miami plays watches film, changes game plans to affect Miami offensively and defensively, and Miami has no answer. This is what I was talking about earlier in the year, how Miami comes out slowly every single game, almost all year long. How are you not prepared? How do you not see these things? If everybody knows that you're going to run RPO slants, maybe you have something else in there. And Danny was talking about, Jaren Williams, his development can be, maybe we get to the second or third tier, the second or third option on these things. Maybe you run some plays to take advantage of the defense instead. And I'm not saying it is only Jaren's fault. I'm not saying it is only Dan Enos's fault. I'm not saying that, the rotation on defense and that last touchdown run, you have in a backup there, Gilbert Frierson. I think he's going to be a good player here, but you have a backup player at striker. He fills the wrong gap. Anthony Jones is out the back door. That's the touchdown, which, was an FIU football, and their whole university is still celebrating it, saying this is the biggest touchdown in FIU history. This is the biggest moment in FIU history because you have second string defenders in on a key play, and he fills a bad run gap fit, and then boom, the guy is gone. It is not only his fault. It is not only Blake Baker's fault. It is not only anybody's fault. It is everyone's fault.
Got a contribution here from JELOVE T. We appreciate it. Also, Mr. Nice Guy TV, DeAndre, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I'll remind everyone that Cam donates his time to us each and every week to make this show possible. So please contribute in a number of ways, like, comment, share the videos out there, but also the super chat is available. So thank you, JLove. We'll honor this question. Certainly comments, maybe JLove's referring to after the game. I don't know specifically, but you will, of course, in regards to Manny Diaz comments about the players.
Yeah, I mean, Manny's saying that there is not depth at Miami right now, or to the point where you have backups fighting for starting jobs. That's true. That's what we've said. Even if you look at the blue chip ratio, it's the cream of the crop is at the top of the roster. And the depth is not there. That championship caliber depth is not there on the roster. Everybody sees that. Everybody said that. Manny's not saying anything new. What he was saying is, when you have depth at every position, then you have younger guys fighting to start, and the easy comparison is like, 2001, Frank Gore is your fourth string running back. Frank Gore, who's now third all time in NFL rush yards. You know what I mean? He's behind Clinton Portis and Willis McGahee, Najee Davenport, things like that. Miami's not there. And we know that. But that should not be what keeps Miami from beating FIU. That's the thing that everybody is ignoring. People are talking about, oh, Cam, it's not about perfection. Apparently it is, because perfection was needed to beat FIU. What if you come out and play consistently every single week? This is what I was talking about. The Miami team that played against Louisville, they score 80, literally, because they already scored 52 against Louisville. They score 80 against FIU. If that same team with that same effort, motivation, dedication to excellence shows up, but they don't. So yeah, there is not championship caliber depth. So, Manny, it's on you then to get the guys who are game ready, who are your starting level players, who have been in ACC games, all ACC second to third team, maybe honorable mention, guys who have played and made big plays in big spots and big games here. It's your job to get them ready to play to that level. It is not necessarily. And yeah, you gotta be a self-starter. You got to be out there and not just BS around. You got to go out there. You got to make plays. But, Justin DeTavio, one of our guys, he says at State of the U, he says it all the time. He says your team will do one of two things: what you coach them to do or what you allow them to do. So you're either coaching them to be lackadaisical and give this half-ass effort, or you're allowing it. And I don't want to hear anything different. It's one of them two things. You can debate amongst yourselves, ye who are listening, which one it is. But no, I don't care the championship caliber depth. We did not lose to Alabama this week, guys. What are we talking about? Miami lost to FIU, and we're talking about not having championship caliber depth. With guys on their team who Miami recruited as like D-level options, fourth and fifth options on the recruiting trail. Guys who couldn't hold a jockstrap at Miami. Guys who dreamed of this moment because they were passed over, because they're not those kind of players. And this is what we're talking about. Do you see why I'm angry? Do you see why I am crazy here? That you are equating not having championship caliber effort or championship caliber depth to not being able to be successful against FIU football. I'm going crazy.
Miami is they're a program that expects much better, should, and I can understand the anger, the frustration, and everything that was displayed right there by any reasonable fan. Not expecting the world or leaps and bounds over what we saw last season, but expecting improvement and expecting that there not be letdowns against this kind of an opponent. That, again, if you take, and it didn't really hit me until it came out of my mouth a few minutes ago, and then you expounded on it, that Miami's not a great football team. They're really not a very good football team right now, but they're a talented roster that on occasion, basically, again, within the conference, they took the three best opponents on the schedule: Virginia, Louisville, and Pitt. Those are, I don't think there's any question, those are the three best teams within the conference on the schedule, and they won those games. They weren't pretty. They weren't dominant, especially in two games. They barely scored 16 and 17 points, but their defense was dominant in those games. So they showed us in those games that they should win the Coastal Division. That if they show up, and every team's going to have a letdown or two during the season, but typically if they're as talented or there's that gap, they can usually get by, maybe not all the time. There are upsets that occur, but now this is, I made the statement last week that I was almost sure, without scanning the nation completely, almost positive that Miami was the only team in the nation that had lost two games in which they were at least a 2-touchdown favorite. Now they've lost 3 games in which they were at least a 2-touchdown favorite. In 2 of those, a 20-plus point favorite.
There's 4 games that Miami has not been within 2 scores of the line. There's 3 games now that Miami has not been within 3 scores of the line. Miami beats this season Bethune-Cookman. I know they're an FCS team, but they're like an 8-win team at their level. Central Michigan rebounded really well this year under Jim McElwain. That's a 7-win team. Miami beat them. Virginia, currently ranked 20th when we played them. That's a good team. Pittsburgh, That's a winning team. Florida State, dumpster trash, but whatever. But still, they're a bowl eligible team now. Louisville, that's a developing team. That's a winning team. Right, exactly. So these are the teams that Miami has beaten. Go look at the teams that Miami's lost to. FIU, trash. Georgia Tech, trash. North Carolina and Florida, and this is where I went back and just went through the schedule, because the stat that I saw is Miami has not lost to a sub 500 team this year. But you have Florida and North Carolina in their respective season openers. So that kind of skews it. So those teams, I mean, North Carolina decidedly average, but Miami average to bad. And Florida, is a top 15, 10-ish team. But you lose by a field goal, played decently well. Yeah, there were things to work on, like the offensive line. But Miami just continues to find, Virginia Tech was on the verge of firing Justin Fuente before you saved his job, just like Al Golden used to save Mike London's job at Virginia previously by losing to a bad team then. It is just confounding to see the kind of inconsistency with, you're talking about potentially ending the season on a 6-game winning streak. You had 3, you had a bye week. You could have 2 here. You're not going to the ACC championship game. Then you can win a bowl game against a, mid-tier, upper-tier, opponent. You're, tweeting about recruiting as Manny Diaz and the whole staff. You're doing all these things. But again, 3 steps forward, 10 steps back. Like, this game is, the loss to FIU is so gigantic in a huge way. And I cannot overstate how poor that is and how badly Miami finds ways to play. And even just in the last half of this season, Virginia Tech was about to fire Justin Fuente. You turn the ball over 4 times in the first 22 snaps, spot them a 28-point lead, and you lose that game. Georgia Tech is still garbage, and you find a way to lose that game. You lose to FIU, terrible. As Mr. Wright says, they gave up 400 yards rushing alone to FAU the week before and getting blown out by 30 points. It is terrible. It is terrible. It is terrible. And the analogy that I use for this, Manny Diaz, well, for part of this, I'm going to get to the flopping in a second. The Manny Diaz noted yesterday in his Monday pressers that he's trying to change things up during the bye weeks to change the performance. He said he's already changed things in both of the second and third bye weeks of this year. So you lose to North Carolina after one bye, you change things before the Virginia Tech week. In that bye, you lose again. You change things before FIU, and you lose again. When I was a first-year teacher, and I was starting out and trying to figure out my way, leading a program for the first time, stepping up into the big job, I did not even have a bag of tricks or tricks in the bag of tricks. I didn't even have a bag to put tricks in. We are seeing Manny Diaz in that same way. It's not even that he can go to another thing. Oh, I'm going to try that. I don't know where he's getting it from, but I mean, he needs professional development, obviously. But he doesn't even have a bag to put the tricks in that he can go and try. And the only other person on the staff who's been a head coach before at the college level is Todd Stroud. Who are you talking to? Where are you getting your advice from? Who can come into the office and say, hey, Manny, when you remember, and this is part of being a first-time head coach, not even first year, first-time head coach. Who can come into the office and say, when I was at Middle Tennessee State as head coach, this, when you remember when you coached elsewhere, or who can come and say that? Nobody. There's no one on the staff literally who has that kind of experience. So I don't care whether it's mentoring. I don't care whether it's Miami, and obviously it's a private school, so the numbers are different, but Miami following the Alabama route and saying, we're going to hire some of these head coaches who are out of work as analysts or something and bring them in. You know what I mean? I don't know where it's going to come from, but professional development is definitely needed, because 6-5 with this schedule this year, with this roster, with this talent, it is fireable. And I mean, look, Manny Diaz is not going to get fired, but if some assistants aren't gone after this year, and assistants plural, Manny Diaz is going to be on a short leash moving forward. Watch. Now, the other thing, and I saw that question, it is deplorable the level to which Butch Davis decided to stoop, both in coaching his players to fake injuries, and you saw it on the screen, that was coached directly from the sideline. Every single player who went down grabbed the same hamstring. So you're telling me that only their right legs are the ones that have injuries? I don't care the bullshit that you put on the injury report. That was absolutely false. I don't care. And the announcer said it. There's a strongly worded aversion to doing things like this in the rule book, but there's no penalty for it. And I mean, if there's no penalty, then who cares that there's a strongly worded aversion? It's absolutely Bush League. It's absolute bullshit that you do that you fake injuries repeatedly to stop Miami when Miami's offense is moving. Then guys hop up, do, backflips and cartwheels like they're Simone Biles coming off the field, sprinting like they're Deion Sanders running a 4.18 or something immediately after. Oh, I'm good now. Cool. Got it. But the thing to me that pissed me off even more, when asked directly about it, I'm not even mad that Butch Davis, that he lived the lie to the point where he's saying, well, check our injury report. These guys have injuries. A hamstring injury is a soft tissue injury. That's the injury that you say when you're a lazy player and you don't want to run sprints. You know what I mean? Oh, my hamstring. Well, it's not torn. I can't really, but I mean, it's sore, coach, so I can't run. So miss me with that, Butch Davis. But to equate you absolutely bullshit directing your players to fake hamstring injuries, equating that and saying, oh, well, the fans booed when we did that, but we didn't boo when DJ Dallas dislocated his elbow. No, sir. Absolutely not. I'm not going to curse on here anymore. I apologize for my language. But that was an injury, a legitimate injury that everybody saw. You're at the game. You saw it on the big screen. I was at home. I'm watching it on my television. You saw DJ Dallas's elbow get dislocated. You saw his arm in a disfigured state. But you are going to equate you having your players intentionally fake injuries to that actual occurrence? Butch Davis, you can go to hell.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our Miami broadcast each and every week. It's floating around week to week based on schedules from Cam and myself. So we hope that you appreciate Cam's time in delivering the best in Miami football content and analysis right here. And of course, check out the work over at stateoftheu.com. State of the U, it's the SB Nation platform for Miami athletics and basketball season starting, football, Duke, and a bowl game, and much analysis, I'm sure, concerning what has transpired over the last 11 games of a team that went 7-5, lost a bowl game last year. Mark Richt, of course, retiring, and Manny Diaz taking over. And most people, I would think the polls were out there and were pretty of a consensus nature. Miami fans being pleased with Manny Diaz being hired initially. I don't know what they would state right now. A lot of people obviously in the chat angered by the performance this week and at other points during the season, Georgia Tech, etc., want him gone, or want, as you've mentioned, with the coordinators and the other coaches, maybe going that route offensively or defense, or maybe Manny Diaz takes over the defense next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but, to the point, actually, we, have the fan voting over on State of the U and SB Nation, the fan pulse, and Miami's confidence score of the fans who vote in this weekly plummeted this week. So after being 97.7% confident or pleased in the direction of the program after the Louisville game, that confidence rating is at 15.2% currently. So I know that it's not necessarily emblematic of everyone, but it is not a far stretch of imagination to believe that most people are displeased with what we have seen. Even people who may have thought that this season would not have been as successful as I did. I mean, look, again, you lost to FIU. I don't want to hear about, and the comparisons that people are making are so asinine. People talking about, oh, well, Ed Orgeron lost to whomever at LSU.
Troy.
Troy. Troy was a better team then and now than FIU, first of all. Second of all, what happened after that? They beat a ranked Florida team. They beat a ranked Auburn team. Then they go back to the drawing board and they update the offense into the spread beast monster system that you're seeing now, because they said what we're doing is not working. So we're looking for answers. You know what I mean? However, Miami and Manny Diaz wants to say, oh, well, it worked once before, so we're just going to do this same thing and not use the space, that we can create for our skill position players. These guys who play spread offense pretty much from optimist ball up. We're not going to do that kind of a thing. And look, you can spread to run. People made fun of Justin DeTavio and our website, State of the U, last year when evaluating offensive coordinator candidates. And he wrote a wonderful piece about Sean Gleason, the former offensive coordinator at Princeton, who had the Princeton offense doing numbers. He gets hired over at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has the number 15 rush offense in America right now. Their running back is almost at 2,000 yards, 1,823 with 20 tutties. You had Tylan Wallace as a wide receiver. So when you want to bring that other defender down into the box to stop the run, what are we doing? Going over the top. That's innovative kind of offense. That's a guy that Miami could have hired. That's a guy who would have fit into using space and still running the ball effectively. Number 15 rush offense in America, bro. This is not, every spread system is not the Mike Leach throw it 80 times a game. No, Rick Scott, I will not calm down. I'm angry. I'm pissed off. I'm not accepting this because on so many levels it is complacency. So it is everything is, it is not as hard as they're making it out to be. And it boggles my mind that we are still doing the same things over and over and over and expecting different results. And I'm talking from a schematic way. Yeah, we brought in some new coaches. We brought in, okay, fine. But you brought in the new coaches to do the same thing. And not only that, you do the same thing, but you do it worse than it was done as the problem with the previous staff. Miami is dead last in third down conversions, 27.13%. Dead last in America, 130th out of 130. You know who converts more than the next team up, 129 out of 130? Akron. Akron is 0-11 this year, 27.37, I believe, percent conversions. So the actual worst team in America, overall, their record, their point differential, all these different kind of things. The worst team in America converts third downs better than the Miami Hurricanes for the season. 1 out of 10 against FIU. And actually, because I leave the stats open for this very reason, if we have third downs, these are the distances of third downs. Let's see. 3rd and 6, you complete a 4-yard pass. 3rd and goal, incomplete. 3rd and 1, no gain. 3rd and 10, incomplete. 3rd and 2, that's your one conversion. 3rd and 2, incomplete. 3rd and 12, sack. 3rd and 10, incomplete. 3rd and 4, complete for 3. 3rd and goal, loss of 2. So you're not even having 3rd and forever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your 10 third downs were 6 yards or less. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing?
I referenced this LSU team the other day as well because, the Troy game was brought up to me following the Miami game on Saturday, and I've got it right in front of me. But I remembered these games, and I just remembered that LSU rebounded. They beat 2 top 10 teams that year, Florida, Auburn. You mentioned that. and they came within a whisker beating Notre Dame in a bowl game that would have elevated them to 10-3. They still finished 9-4 and number 18 in the country. So, that's pretty typical LSU or even lower end LSU performance. So that game was an embarrassment for the team. Certainly an SEC power losing to Troy, but that was a 10-3 Troy team that won a bowl game. And that was an aberration for the season. It was a complete aberration.
Thank you.
They lost to Notre Dame in the last second of the Citrus Bowl. They made a Citrus Bowl game. They won 9 games. They finished in the top 20. So,
but we're seeing
an aberration,
right? But again, and that's an aberration. That's a 10-win Troy team, like you're talking about. That team is miles and miles better than FIU. There is no comparison on that. And for Miami, this is not the aberration. This is the rule. Georgia Tech, FIU, same kind of caliber team, and you lose to both of them. No, it is not the same. And I'm tired of people making these arguments just because they look at the name on the schedule. So they say, okay, let me go find a team who lost to a G5 team. Let me find anybody any year. Oh, LSU lost to Troy. Go look back. Just like Mark said, that's a 10-win Troy team. They lose on the last second play to Notre Dame in the bowl game. That LSU team was still 9-4. Miami is not any of that at all. And again, you're doing this with more talent than anybody in any team that you're playing, except for Florida and Florida State this entire year. And you're blowing this pillowy soft schedule. I mean,
my apologies to Troy. They went 11-2.
Oh, that even better.
They went 10-3. They went 11-2. They won the Sun Belt Conference. They lost a very competitive game against Boise State that year. Obviously, we know Boise State and what they can do, and they wiped out the rest of their conference, and they won a bowl game by 20 points.
So I say all of that to say, miss me with any comparison to LSU losing to that Troy team. That ain't it. That was one of the best G5 teams in the country that year. That's like the more analogous thing would be for LSU losing to that Troy team would be, I don't know who's better than South Carolina, but a South Carolina losing to this current year's App State, because that team is a good team. FIU is not. And Miami found a way to lose to them. You should be as disgusted as I am. And instead of telling me to calm down, you should be more angry.